Good evening. Tonight is Monday, March 18th at 6 o'clock p.m. Going to call the Policy Committee meeting for FAMPO to order. And if you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance if you are able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could we please have a roll call?
Yes, Meg Bonke.
Here.
Lori Hayes.
Here.
Jason Graham.
Here.
Janet Holmes.
Here.
Will McIntosh.
Here.
Drew Mullins.
Here.
Monica Gary. Here. Marcy Parker. Here. Bob Schneider.
Here.
Crystal Vanuch. Chris Yakubowski. David Brown. Beyonce Diggs. Pamela Young. Present. Jacob Lane. Gerald Childress. Kathy Coffey. And Joe Stan. We have.
All right, thank you so much. Could we have an approval for the agenda this evening?
So moved.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All against? Any opposed? That motion carries. The first thing we have this evening is item 5. We have 2 public hearings. And the first one is amendments to the fiscal year 24-27 Transportation Improvement Program to adjust funding allocations for 2 projects. UPC 117026, number S Smart 22. That is Route 648, Shelton Shop Road improvements. The second one is UPC 103085 for HB 2 fiscal year 17. And that's Route 1/630 area corridor improvements. Okay, the second one is item B, draft GWRC Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan. So at this point in time, I'd like to see if there's anybody in the public that would like to address the policy committee on either of these public hearings. Do you have anyone here? All right, seeing none. Do we have any online comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that public hearing.
I do have one here, but nobody was speaking up, so.
Okay.
I do have a comment that we received in advance.
All right, if you could read it, thank you.
Yes, and let me put the timer up so you all can tell me when I'm.
Okay.
This comment is from Jane Leeds. The title of the study pretty much says it all. The data collection process and priority concerns outline the service priorities and remedies being considered. Most, if not all, the planning concerns drivers, vehicles, and infrastructure to protect them. While that is a worthy endeavor, the entire focus is on that process, which is easily identified and focuses on those particular needs of the public. Very little consideration, data collection, or thought is given to those who cannot drive, have no safe access to public transit, cannot walk or drive to nearby services, healthcare, food stores, public government, etc. in any way. Simply said, there are very few safe, accessible, contiguous, and meaningful paths, trails, and sidewalks that those who are physically challenged can use on the same streets and roads, being given priority overall. Therefore, there is no data to accumulate or to reflect their needs. The aged, financially challenged, and disabled are locked into their homes, subdivisions, and communities with little or no help or quality of life. Those that are financially challenged as well as physically challenged have few safe resources or access to quality of life in the region. Many of who are taxpayers not receiving their fair share of public resources for so-called safe streets and roads. They are simply ignored or discounted because there is no data or findings of their needs, only that of vehicle drivers. In addition to few safe or accessible sidewalks, there are no audible signals in the entire region for those who are sight impaired. Using public transit is virtually impossible as crossing streets or intersections to safely access them and to return home where necessitates their crossing the street, which without audible signals, either where they are beginning or ending their ride. This population has no reasonable means in any part of the region for safe mobility. There are some cities, counties that provide rides to those needing to access healthcare, pharmacies, and other necessary trips for food, public services, etc. But those ride services are limited in scope and availability due to the number of aged, disabled, and financially challenged that are in that population. The Commonwealth of Virginia spends millions of taxpayers' dollars preparing children and young adults with disabilities to learn job skills and have an education. But when they graduate, they are unable to meaningfully and safely pursue employment. Often public transit is not safely accessible, no sidewalks or audible signals. Not all jobs can be done remotely, nor can employment be gained remotely. Many impaired adults cannot gain access to transportation on streets and roads by any means for the duration of their work lives. Public transit in most areas of the region does not serve the public on holidays, weekends, or for those who have jobs that require shift work 24/7, healthcare, government agencies, personal services, etc. Safe roads and streets must and should include safe and accessible infrastructure for pedestrians, wheelchair riders, and those using assistive appliances, canes, and walkers. Thank you very much. That concludes what I was able to read in this public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Collie. Okay, now I'm gonna move to item number 6. That is just general public comment. Do we have anybody from the public here that would like to speak about anything? Yes, Mr. Watkins.
Was surprised.
I didn't see you over there.
I'm trying to hide, actually. This will be relatively quick for me. I'm learning the ropes, even though I've kind of been involved with this, even on CBAC and everything else.
Can you just please state your name? and
Alan
address?
Watkins, 12 England Run Lane, and
Even though we know it.
yes, even though I've said it a million times.
Thank you.
I'm still kind of learning how things work. I actually had intended to use my 3 minutes today in the hopes that I could actually present something, because I find from time to time that there's some information that I've kind of run across that I'm not sure whether or not it's actually filtered down to everyone at this point in time. I would like to alert you though that in this particular instance, what I had done for this particular presentation is regarding all the new different developments, the housing developments and other developments that are going on in the area that I don't think not that everyone is totally familiar with. I will tell you that it's all available for you to look at. This is a Facebook page, actually, if you wanted to write down Stafford Southern Gateway. Anything that's going on in this particular area regarding the bridge and any other developments and issues that are going on there. This particular one that I put up today that I had intended to speak about, basically, like I said, deals with all the developments and how it deals with all the different potential options that were, modeled for trying to figure out where the bridge and the parkway were able to go. So there are some conflicts, literally. If some of the things that have been applied for go in, there are no options right now. So there's going to have to be a lot of negotiating that takes place. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Could I just ask if you send me a link to the actual page? I'm happy to circulate it to everybody so they can find your stuff.
Okay. Shall do.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment and go down to item number 7, the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second?
Oh, second,
Can't do it.
second, yeah.
Okay, Jason seconded that. Thank you. Any discussion on these 3 consent items? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay, item number 8, the Ian's report for us today.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm happy to sit here if that's okay with all of you. Next slide. It's a nice short one. So thank you to VDOT. We worked with VDOT to get some data on the traffic patterns on the new in the industry, we call them the CD lanes, but the Rappahannock River crossing local lanes and local bridges that have been constructed. So just as a frame of reference, that tells you the average the average daily traffic in 2019 on the I-95 before the bridges were built. About 74,608 trips north, southbound only. So only on the southbound side of the highway, that's the number. Next slide. So I'm cheating a little bit, but in 2022, we had not all of the permutations available, but the southbound lanes and bridge became available, and you'll see the traffic grew in total to 76,000 odd trips. But you can see there the difference between the CD lanes, which are the local lanes, and the district collector lanes, which are the through lanes. And you can see there more traffic was traveling when they opened on the local lanes. So trying to get off at Fredericksburg and not go all the way through towards Richmond without stopping. The traffic crossing the bridge, more of it is on the local lanes. More of it is wanting to travel locally than is wanting to travel through from, say, New York to Florida.
One sec, okay,
ma'am.
Marcy?
And that was predicted in the study before we did the project.
Great.
So it is
Okay.
acting as,
So it's
We
doing
predict-
what it's meant to do.
yes.
Oh, okay.
Right.
It was me the first 3 times and I got in the through lane.
Yes, this becomes divided.
Yeah,
I knew what was, I'm like, I'm in these. things.
I
I
screwed it up
Okay.
once too, because before, when the first time I tried it, I was like, where is the, so yeah, the first time around was.
That's it, I'm going to Richmond.
He had a Harrison.
So that was 2022. So we've luckily enough managed to get just 1 month's worth of average traffic on the next slide for February 2024, which is hot off the press. So we haven't got the full year of 23 yet, but at least we got the February 24 number. And you can see then it's still 76,000. But just remember, there are fewer days in February than an average month. So it's slightly less than the average in 22. But I think that's just because there's less days in February. I think that if it was a more regular month with 30 days, I think you would, or 31 days, you'd get a slightly higher number.
This is a daily average, not a monthly total.
Oh, that's true. You're
Yeah.
quite, you're
Yeah.
quite correct. Sorry, ignore what I just said. I spoke complete rubbish. That is the average. And,
That one.
but again, if you compare the CD lanes to the through lanes, sorry, yes, the through lanes, the local lanes are still slightly more than the through lanes, although there's been a little bit of a shift towards the through lanes.
So
Still
to
more.
keep in mind that the average annual daily traffic is a massage number for the whole year.
Yes,
So that 2022 number was for the whole year. This is just
just for 1
February.
month.
Correct. And we know that traffic increases significantly between May and September.
Yeah.
So once we get the 23 numbers, I
So,
think you'll see is probably has increased.
so I misspoke, but I wasn't that old. It is not a, it's not a typical month.
Right for the wrong reasons.
I was right for the wrong. Secondly, later on today, you've got a presentation on transit in the region from both Fred Transit and also from OmniRide. But I want to refresh your memory on these slides because last year we presented these slides to you to ask your opinion on whether you wanted work research done on transit. Next slide. So this is the process we followed. We've got quite a few new members of the policy committee. I was asked to meet with OmniRide and Fred Transit FXB Go now to explore greater cooperation and look at the future of transit. I also had a meeting with the director of DRPT to see whether they had some comments on how transit operates in our region. Didn't get a lot of information from that meeting, but we did talk to them. Had a discussion with Jamie, Bob, and the assistant city manager of Fredericksburg, and they said, we need some more information. What exactly is it you want us to study? So next slide. I put to you last year, if I can have the next slide, please. There we go. A set of questions, which you said, yes, please go and find out more information. we've regrouped now this year, and today Bob and Jamie are going to make presentations to give you a snapshot of what it is they currently do. But I'd like to put these questions to you again. It's been suggested with so many new policy committee members that we just want to verify that you want us to do further research answering these kinds of questions. So if you just look at those questions quickly, they're just 4 questions. Do you want us to investigate alternatives other than what we currently have? Do you want us to prepare tables illustrating costs and benefit of these options? Do you want us to investigate other modes such as on-demand microtransit? That's something completely different to what we have now. Are there any other requests that you have? So we're coming back to you to ask you those same questions because it was felt that with a lot of new members, there may be different opinions, and we just like to do that. I'm not going to ask you the questions now, but after the 2 presentations tonight, this is kind of what we want to know. Is that fine? You're happy with the 2 presentations, or you want more information? And if you want more information, are these the kinds of things you want us to provide for you? Remember, it takes lots of staff time of OmniRide and of Freight Transit and of FAMPO staff to go and dig into, make numbers and tables and all that sort of jazz. So we don't want to do work that you're not interested in. We need to just verify that. So that's where we are. Chairperson, next slide. So there's just my question at the end. If you could tell us at the end of the 2 presentations if you want further work. Next slide. So we did some initial work. Supervisor Van Nuys asked us to ask the question, what is the likely commuting pattern of federal workers from our region to the various federal offices? And for some weird reason, looking at the text on the screen, it's coming out real funny, and it didn't look like that on my desktop computer, so I don't know why that is. But attached to your agenda today is the email response. We approached the our counterpart in Washington, D.C., which is the Transportation Planning Board, the TPB, which is part of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, which is their PDC. And they've told us that actually there isn't hard data that's going to help us. There are, however, surveys of workers and so on. So there you go. Federal agencies will be setting telework policies to suit their agency mission and tasks. Generally, 50% of all federal employees remain eligible for teleworking, but that doesn't mean that they're all going to take advantage of it. And every 3 years, the State of the Commute Survey is conducted. And the results of the survey in 2019 and 2022 give us some indication. The 2022 survey reports that 79% of the respondents who work for a federal agency reported routine telework. In 2019, this was only 48%, so it's grown. Also, the survey found that 92% of teleworkers reported teleworking 1 or more day per week, and 71% did 3 or more days per week. Now, this is not going to answer exactly the question that Supervisor Van Nuys was asking, right? The question really revolves around what governments are telling their workers or going to be telling their workers in future. So it's not one-to-one the answer exactly to the question, but it's the first amount of work we've done and been able to find out. We'll continue to follow up this matter, and as we get better information, we'll share it with you. So that's all I have for you today.
All right, since Supervisor Van Nuys brought this up, do you have any questions just for starters?
I like how you dimed me out in the subject line, so appreciate that.
We
I'm just kidding.
didn't want to,
Give you credit.
Yeah, no. I don't think it's surprising, just most of you guys, I don't know if you guys were here all at the last meeting.
Last meeting.
Yeah, because my husband works for the federal government, and it's a huge debate right now with these different agencies, and the ones who have tried to institute come back to the office are meeting their resistance, and people have moved out of the state. A bunch of people, there's one guy at my husband's office who literally moved to Culpeper, and it's like, I am not coming back. and there's really not much they can really do about it. So not that it helps us in any way figure out these commuting patterns, but I think that this pretty much confirms what I kind of thought.
So we will carry on finding out what we can. The difficulty is that there isn't one policy for the whole federal government. Each department is working on their own, which makes it a little hard to predict.
But a lot of them won't, I think are not coming back. They're gonna allow the flex work schedules. But yeah, I don't,
Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I
Yeah.
completely agree. I mean, I may be but a lowly contractor in the federal system, but the same holds true. People are just outright refusing, and the rules around federal employees and hiring and
can't get
firing, be what they are, you know, and at this point, there's so much brain drain that's gonna be going on over the next few years anyway with retirements, that I think they're just gonna have to sit there and deal with it. So I would suggest that policies that we think of, I think we should look at, you know, the hybrid and like almost a half and half or 2 days a week, maybe in the office as the new normal for our, you know, federal employees in the region. Because I do not see anything more than that, frankly, just being accepted. And so I think if we just kind of have that, you know, heuristic, it might be a more reasonable approach to what we think of for future trends.
What it's does say to us though is that it's more likely that people will do more local trips. They're not driving all this long distance to the office, but I might just pop out to get a chocolate at the local store. Or I might just go and, you know, spend more time picking up my kids rather than having the bus do it because I can now get there. So we think there's going to be a little bit of a tendency for more local trips rather than long trips.
When we kind of found out at VRE last week with a show of hands that I guess Quantico has requested people to come back. And a lot of people in the room, probably 98% of them all put their hand up that they knew somebody that was going back at least another day.
Right. That's what I say. Hybrid might be.
It's a mixed bag.
Right.
It's a mixed-
And, you know, and that comprises all the northern counties.
Mhm.
So, yeah, if anybody else have questions, Marcy?
So have we looked locally as to, with those little local trips, has traffic increased? I think I know the answer, but has traffic increased in the local area during the day?
I thought you were going to tell us the answer to the
I
question.
can only tell you driving around, yes, there are a lot more people
But
driving around during the day.
We have
but-
an expert consultant sitting over there who used to work for you or with you and at VDOT, and he's doing work right now on not all the roads in the region, but on a select subset of roads for our river crossing study. And so they are picking up local traffic issues with turn lanes not being long enough to take all the traffic. And so there's lots of little local problems that are occurring that they've got data for. And we'll see as that data becomes more and more available, what it looks like. But I haven't done a whole study of the whole region and every road and all that. If you fund,
Well, just the major roads.
if you fund it, I'll do one for you. You don't have to fund it.
All right, Drew?
I just have a question, Madam Chair. Ian, are you able to pull data from the Smart Path, Easy Pass? Like, that would not be able to tell you,
No,
like, just an anonymized data?
we don't have access to that data, but OIP, the Office of Intermodal Planning Investment, they do, John, is it monthly? I think they've got a monthly database of traffic per region in Virginia. And so those graphs I showed you last month, Connor pulled those from the OIP data. And so they have a way of counting various spots across the state. I just don't know if they're getting those from Easy Pass numbers. I think they might just be getting that from regular traffic count machines that are placed at certain strategic locations all over.
Would Easy Pass possibly be a good source of, you know, tells you origination, destination-ish?
I mean, that might be, but it's a private company, right?
Well,
So-
so Easy Pass is not, VDOT maintains Easy Pass, but you're looking for the express lanes.
Yeah,
That is a private company. They have all that data,
Okay.
but it's theirs.
so that's their data, right?
You can ask them for it.
But we
Mike,
don't,
Chair.
but we don't
wouldn't Easy.
need that because we have streetlight data. Sorry, Chair, but we have streetlight data, which is origin and destination data. It's not counts.
Thanks.
Have Monica and then Dr. Schneider.
Yeah, I just wanted to, remark real quick, this came up in one of our previous discussions, there's a certain, I guess, percentage of time people travel out of habit, whether it's car, I forget who it was that spoke about that, but it would make sense that well, it makes sense that the local, travel would be up, so I think you continue to see that if people don't go back full time, right, and reasonably to the extent.
Yeah, the data indicates that people don't have a tolerance for traveling a certain distance. They have a tolerance for traveling a certain amount of hours per week, per month. So when you take away a lot of the need for travel over here, the optional trips suddenly become more attractive because I haven't driven anywhere this week. Let me get in the car and go somewhere. There's a natural, and it's not American, it's not in the United States, it's a global thing. Wherever you are in the world, people just have this certain affinity for traveling a few hours every week. And so they'll find something to go and see or buy or do. So if they don't go to as many shopping trips because they're delivered to the door, or they don't have to commute an hour to work, they'll go somewhere else. We as human beings just like to do a little traveling,
Yeah.
right? That's our behavior.
Dr. Schneider?
Disregarding and mention.
Oh, we did? Okay. All right.
Not what it was, but thank you.
Streetlight day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on this?
I just wanted to point out this last slide, which I forgot. Coley's just to remind me, the RTA subcommittee, I believe some discussion might happen about the timing of that tonight. But if it's going ahead, just to remind you, it's on Thursday in this room at 6 p.m. Public workshop, which is going ahead. Brad from Michael Baker's going to do a presentation tonight. And what we're doing is a little bit of a cheat. We're giving you a sneak preview of what we're going to show the public on Wednesday. We've done this on purpose, so you can scream at me if you want to, or, you know, we just were worried that the route options were going to end up in the newspaper before you'd seen them. And we didn't think that was fair. So we tailor-make the time, I'm just telling you the facts, right? We tailor-made the timeline on purpose so that the public hearing would be only like 1.5 days after you see it, 2 days. But that we wouldn't show it to other committees and bodies before you'd seen it, because we just didn't think it would be great if it goes out to the public and you have no idea what it is, because it'll be on the front page of the Freelance Star, and then everybody calls you and goes, what were you thinking? Now at least you have the briefing, right? So the first people who are going to see this presentation tonight are you. No one's seen this. No one, literally no one. A few FAMPO staff, but nobody else has seen it.
We appreciate that as a policy committee. Thank you.
I had a question. Can you just someone explain how the streetlight data works, just in short form?
Real quick, what it does is either from your smartphone, which has a chip in it that gives location data to you when you're driving, so you can follow on a map like Google Maps or Waze. That data is collected by companies, anonymized, so it's like how many trips per thousand and all that, and then used to map out origins and destinations of trips in certain areas. And they anonymize it and then they display it by census block. So we have no idea whose car it is. We have no idea where they live or anything about them. All we know is that a dot went from here to here. That's all we know. And they now, with more modern vehicles, there's a chip in your car that can do that, so that we don't necessarily need to use your cell phone at all anymore. That little chip in your car beeps and it tells nothing about you. It just says there is a vehicle here that went over there. Don't know anything about the vehicle, don't know anything about the user, don't know anything about any of your personal details. All we know is a dot. It's a dot here, but we don't even get the dots as users. All we get is the bulk cumulative data. So all we get is, and they even make it one step worse. They turn it into a relative scale, so that it's completely anonymized. We have no way of tracing anybody or any trips. But what it tells us is, and this is what we used in our study recently, is that we can put a gateway on the roads and say how many people who got in a vehicle in Stafford crossed the river south, and where did they go to? And we used that data in the previous river crossing study, and the consultant's going to use it again to check it on their own to see people in Stafford who drive across the river, where are they going to? People who are in Spotsy, people who are in Spotsy and in the city who drive north and cross the river, where are they going to? But we've excluded all of the out of the region trips. So we're not bothered with trips going to DC because the river crossing bridge wasn't meant to help them. It's meant to help local people. That's all I
Can I ask one
needed.
question on
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
that?
And then.
What about for those of us who carry multiple cell phones? Does it delineate between that?
Guy behind you's got the
So
on.
actually, Streetlight has moved away from using a lot of cell phone data, kind of partially for that reason. So at this point in time, I think 2018 is the last real year that they are heavily invested in cell phone data. So as long as we're outside of that time frame, they're using a different group and source of data, including like GPS, like I think they just came into agreement with TomTom. So there's other devices that are now kind of supplanting doing their Streetlight data.
That's interesting. Will.
Is there any equivalent technology for collecting data about other modes of travel? In other words, do we know pedestrians, cyclists?
So
riders?
they do collect for trucks, for cars, they collect for cyclists. But because the number of cyclists per area is quite low, we don't really trust the Streetlight and similar companies' data for cyclists and pedestrians. The number of data points is too low, and then we're worried that it's not really accurate. So we don't rely on those. We rely on it for cars and trucks because there's so many. When you get down to bicycles, you know, what's the average of 5 bicycles in an entire region? It's just a bit too small. We can, but we just don't think it's reliable. We have our own counter, two counters, which get moved around the region, and Coley, by computer there, goes to the counters and downloads the data regularly, and then makes presentations for BPAC, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and shows them, you know, how many people use the VCR trail, how many people use the whatever, and so we can give you presentations on that.
All right, any other questions? All right, we have one action item for this evening. And smart scale pre-applications. Ian?
We've got Carrie here, thankfully.
All right,
who has
Carrie.
worked for 6 months on this. So Carrie, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. This is nothing new. I just wanted to confirm with all of you our projects we're going to be submitting, and I indeed have already submitted them to the pre-application portal. So next slide. For DWRC, we have these 5 projects. One of them will have to drop off. Right now, we have I-95 6 interchange, Centerport Parkway. I have a short description for that one. Route 1 and Route 3 interchange, Warrenton Road widening, Enon Road, Centerport Parkway connector, and VDOT Route 3, Route 639 pipeline. That's a series of improvements on the intersections from Old Tank Road to this would be WRC, next to FAMPO, Butler Road widening, I-95 4-lane widening southbound, Route 1 Mass Planks corridor intersection improvements, VDOT pipeline to the station area, and the pipeline study built. So that is what we have. What I need from you tonight is an approval for those. We won't need the actual resolution until June.
Because you have to remove 2.
Yes.
So those are 10 pre-applications, and as these are prepared and readied and so on by us and with help from VDOT and consultants, we then will hopefully discover that 2 of them are not such good projects, and then we'll have to remove those 2. So then it gets reduced down to 8. And when we get to 8, Carrie will come back again and say, now you need to formally vote and we need to pass a resolution on the 8. So these are out of these 10, we will ultimately need to pick 8.
Okay.
Just a quick question, does it have to be eliminated one per list? Or can it,
So,
can we eliminate 2 from one list and rebalance?
So you can rebalance pretty quickly, like, gonna have to be a pretty quick change. Just gonna depend on the two weakest ones are gonna have to come off. Here's our upcoming dates. So you guys know what we have coming down the pipeline. In the next few meetings, I will have much more detail on all of these projects.
Okay,
Questions?
no. Anybody have any questions?
You need a
Okay,
motion.
I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Maybe Carrie, just for the benefit of the new people, could you explain kind of what the process is? Not the timeline, but how you go about making a decision on what project is stronger than the other? Just kind of a
Okay.
executive summary, if you would.
Sure. We work together with VDOT here and with the members of the TAC, that the Transportation Advisory folks. And that's a process. It's really a 2-year process, honestly. It started probably over a year ago. We make sure that we get each county's priorities and we just work through a series of potential candidate projects and whittle them down until we count it. 10.
But now you've got to eliminate, so will you go back to each respective locality and have further discussions with them and drilling down into each project and their locality again?
We do that, and it's also primarily speaking of VDOT, as we discover more and more about what each project entails and what features are involved and whether that's going to work with us.
Okay,
If I can add something, Chairperson, there
sure.
also are 2 of the projects that are not being developed by VDOT, they've been developed by consultants. One in the city and one in Stafford. And so VDOT will review what the consultant does and advise us on whether they think that's a good project. And then the TAC also is a big hand. And of course, on the TAC are all the jurisdiction staff, right? So they have a big hand in review. And what often happens is that one just starts to look sad, right? You look at it and the more you look at it and the more you look at it and you think, you know, it'd be great for the local politician on that particular corner, but it's just not going to score well.
We don't want to submit it if
And-
it's not going to
Yeah,
score well.
so when you start to realize that project number 7 is just going to score badly, you kind of want to take it off because you'd rather get the money for the
Sure.
others. So that's what, it takes a while though. You have
Okay,
to look at the data.
Appreciate that. Jason?
Thank
and
you,
Bristol?
Madam Chair. So these projects, being this, they're gonna be submitted through regional bodies. Are we looking at the IPP, like that
The APP,
score?
yes.
Okay, all right, that's.
Oh, yes, we have gone through that with them.
Oh, no, I mean, this is just for everyone else, like, that's the scoring
Yeah.
methodology that we're gonna be
Yes.
looking at
The
here.
one that I've been trying to teach everybody the last many months, yes.
Right,
that's
so,
what
yeah,
we-
there's a lot of things that we would like to do, but because it's IPP, it's not going to happen. Yep.
Crystal?
Carrie, can you tell me, did you guys review the Garrisonville Road widening? Because I saw Route 17 on there.
Yeah, Garrisonville Road widening, your staff took that off of our list because it's going
On the local smart scale instead of
There's-
regional? How do you, but did you look at how it would score regionally, just locally?
We did not because your staff wanted that on your list. You guys have money on that?
We do, we have a lot of money on that.
We can do, you guys.
You take it off?
And reach under the locals.
I would just be really curious why it didn't get on this list then, because
So request from your staff.
Yes. Yes, your staff told us that you wanted it on your local list.
but it can go on both, and I don't think we ever told them that we wanted it.
If you put it on your local list, you'll be eligible for the both. But if you put it on GWRC or FAMPO, you're only gonna be eligible for one. Remember?
I
So-
thought we should put it on both.
Sorry, just let me explain that. There are 2 ways that projects get scored and funded.
Mhm.
District grant funding and high priority project funding. If you put it on the FAMPO list, it will only be eligible for high priority funding. If you put it on your local list, it's eligible for both high priority and district grant funding. But FAMPO and GWRC are not allowed to get any district grant funding. So if you put on your local list, it's got two possibilities of getting funding. If you put it on the FAMPO one, it only has one opportunity for getting funding.
Can you remind, was it on this list last year?
Yes, and it failed to get chosen.
Well, that was a C.
Well, it was chosen and.
But it actually scored the best out of all the projects. That's why I'm trying to figure out why.
It will still be eligible for HPP funding on your local list. So it'll be eligible for the same pool of funds.
So no project should ever be on both lists by that logic. Is that correct?
Correct.
They can't.
Yeah, you can't. be.
So no project can be on both lists.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, submit it.
Right, it can only be under one thing.
Only one person can submit.
Yeah,
Alright.
OIP made that very clear that it can only be on one list for this round of smart scale.
Yeah, I guess I would have just rather liked to see how it scored on this list versus the county list. And I get that our county staff, so we'll have to deal with our
Right.
staff on that one.
Right, I understand that.
So just
But
the-
that
To see
doesn't
which we would,
exclude it
yeah,
The
from
pros-
the entire pot of money it's on. Right,
if it's on this list.
if it's on this list, it's excluded from the entire
Okay.
pot of money. Right.
Okay, any other discussions? All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that carries. Next is the FAMPO River Crossing Parkway Sneak Peek. Brad Shelton.
That was it. Little change the slide, we're done.
Good evening, everyone. Again, Brad Shelton, Michael Baker. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to give you an update on what we've done so far with the river crossing study. And I'll note that we are just kind of getting underway. But as Ian mentioned, we do have something pretty interesting to show you all tonight. But we'll start with just giving a little background. I think most of you in the room are probably familiar with what we're doing, but FAMPO is looking at evaluating alternatives for River Crossing Parkway west of I-95 between Fredericksburg and Stafford County across the traffic. We're following a process referred to as the planning and environmental linkages process, and I'm going to go to this in a little bit more detail in the next slide. But essentially, it tees us up very nicely for going into NEPA. As part of the study, what we are ultimately doing is evaluating several alternatives, a number of factors I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight, to ultimately determine which alternatives really have legs and which alternatives maybe don't look so great. And ultimately, the goal is to present what we're going to refer to as a consultant preferred alternative. Ultimately, from there, it's up to you all what you do with it. But we'll do all the math and look at all the data and look at all the input and make a study. We'll have a recommendation for you all to consider. So as I mentioned, we are following a process referred to as planning and environmental linkages. This is set forth by FHWA, but a PEL study, essentially what we do with that is we want to make sure that we are looking at the benefits and the impact to the environment, the community, the economy, and ultimately we want to have a recommendation that can be carried forward into the NEPA process. Advantages of using this process is accelerated project delivery. As I said, it really tees it up nicely for the NEPA process, and that we're doing some of the work through our current study that could just feed right into NEPA, which will be the next phase. And kind of see our diagram here at the bottom. The next phase is NEPA that we would go to after our study. Also improve public and stakeholder input, minimize the duplication of efforts because we're doing things up front that we wouldn't have to do again subsequently in NEPA is part of the goal. It builds towards that full NEPA process, but also better communication and relationship building between the public, elected officials, state, federal agencies, including DOTs as part of our scope. We are coordinating with state and federal agencies, various resource agencies as part of this effort. And of course, we have a public meeting coming up later this week. We'll have another round of public meetings later on in the study. And of course, I'm here speaking to you all tonight. Make sure our officials are up to speed. And you'll be seeing me again throughout the course of the study. So one of the things that we're doing as part of this process is establishing what we refer to as a purpose and need statement. So whenever we are thinking about doing a new roadway project, especially one on a new alignment, we really want to make sure that we have a purpose and need statement that explains why the public agency is expending public funds and causing environmental impacts. So again, this is really part of that NEPA requirement that we're trying to do a little advanced work on. So we want to make sure that we're explaining that the expenditure is both necessary and worthwhile. Explain that the projects or the study, the ultimate outcome of the study is its priority relative to other highway projects is warranted. And also the purpose and need statement is going to drive the process for the alternatives consideration. Important to note, so I've got it kind of separate down here, is the purpose and need must be achievable by the preferred alternative. And to that end, it means you want to set a target that you can hit. So you don't want to be so aspirational that you get to the finish line of the study and realize, holy cow, this isn't going to do everything that we thought it would do because we were aiming a little bit too high. So what we did is we wanted to make sure that we were being realistic with our determination of purpose and need. So we did a preliminary screening. And to do that preliminary screening, what we did was we took the 2050 travel demand model. This is the same model that FAMPO has used for their long-range transportation plan. So it's an existing tool that's been used in the region. And we just did a preliminary look to say, okay, if we just drew an arbitrary line across the river in our study area, what would that do? And we really wanted to answer the question is, would it be used? Would it attract demand? And the answer was a resounding yes. A crossing at this location within our study area would prove to be very popular. Again, this is preliminary, so I'm not going to throw out a specific number, but tens of thousands of vehicles per day would use this crossing, which is what we would hope to see. Now, what we don't know yet, and what we'll find out as part of the study, which markets will use the crossing, where will people be coming from and going to based on the various alternatives, and what would the impact be on the surrounding network? We don't know what's going to happen downstream yet. Of course, if we build a new crossing, that traffic has to go somewhere, but we're going to be figuring that out as part of the study, but we're not there yet. We just wanted to know just today, if we drew a line on the map, would it be used? Is there really demand for this, for a crossing in this area? So the answer from the model data that we have today is yes. So with that information in hand, we were proposing the following draft purpose statement. The purpose of this project is to provide additional north-south travel capacity across the Rappahannock River to support travel moving between points west of I-95 in the FAMPO region. And to support that purpose, we have three need statements that we've developed. First, support the establishment of an interconnected grid system of roads. Let's see, I've got my laser here. So what we see is this being really a keystone component to a larger north-south corridor that parallels I-95. Theoretically, there's an option that it could go all the way up to Centerport Parkway. But this is the first step in achieving that, if that is an ultimate vision of the region. The second need is a new multimodal connection across the Rappahannock River. Currently, the only crossing that's really has a comfort level for bicyclists and pedestrians is the Chatham Bridge. So this will provide an additional crossing with bike ped facilities. Also, we are evaluating how this will tie into the existing transit service in the region for facilitating additional transit service across the river as well. And then our third need is creating additional routes for emergency responders. We know we have a regional hospital here in the area. We have emergency responders stationed all throughout the region. Whenever there's an incident on I-95, it can become difficult for responders to get across the river in certain cases. So this will provide an additional resource for emergency responders. I'll also note that we'll be taking this out to the public on Wednesday night and looking to get feedback from the public on these as well. So in addition to the purpose and need, as I said, the purpose and need will kind of set the stage for our screening process. We want to make sure that the alternatives can address those items that we just covered. But in addition to that, we have some additional screening out. We just kind of built into that PEL process. So we'll be looking at the impact on environmental features, the impact on the built environment, and not just what's out there today, but what's proposed and frankly approved in this area to be constructed in the future. We'll be looking at the operations and the safety of the transportation network. As Ian mentioned, we've set up traffic counters all over the study area. We're getting that data in. We'll be updating the travel demand models. We'll be running the alternatives against all this data that we've been collecting. Cost effectiveness, just talking about smart scale, we all know how important cost effectiveness is to improve your options of getting awarded funding. And then, of course, public and stakeholder input is also a valuable data point. So we're working with a stakeholder committee, a technical stakeholder committee as part of this process as well. In addition to the public comments that we'll be getting Wednesday and really over the next month through our online survey. So where we're at this point in the study, we've been tasked with identifying corridors to study. And while these corridors were presented in the 2023 study that FAMPO did, one of their charges was to refine these as needed based off of the data that we've collected as part of this effort. So the corridors that we're going to show at the end of this presentation are going to be a little different from what you see on the screen here. And how we got there is looking at those environmental constraints that we have. We want to make sure we're minimizing our water impacts. We wanted to make sure we're minimizing the Rappahannock River crossing length. We want to cross the river at no greater than a 30% angle, and that helps to minimize that crossing length and helps minimize the impact on the conservation easements. And then we want to minimize our impacts to wetlands and streams. So what happens after we cross the river? You can see we have lots of little streams that are all through the area. So we want to make sure that after we cross the river, we're minimizing the impact to those bodies of water as well. Many of you are aware that we have several conservation easements along the river. We want to make sure we're minimizing our impacts to the conservation easements. Minimizing our impact to historic resources. This is Fredericksburg. The whole area is historic resources. And one thing I do want to point out, as our eagle-eyed FAMPO staff noted, you'll see that the Celebrate Virginia is indicated as having an architectural site. If an architectural site is on the register, it remains on the register until that area has been surveyed. So ultimately, that architectural site can no longer be there because that area has developed, but it won't come off the register until a survey has been completed that clearly identifies that resource is no longer there. And that would happen in the NEPA process should a alternative go through that area. So for now, it's still showing up on the map, and we're acting as if it's still there. And then, as I mentioned, we want to minimize our impact to the built environment, not only what's out there today, but you can see that we have aggregated information on planned, approved, and proposed developments within the study area to make sure that our alternatives can coordinate with these planned developments. Also note that we want to make sure, one of the things that we're also looking at is the ability to connect to existing infrastructure where feasible. So if we have existing medium breaks, we have existing stub outs, things of that nature, or planned roads to be constructed as part of these developments, we evaluated those as possible connections.
Yes, Brad. It's just a little hard to read from here.
Sure.
So one project there in Stafford County, what does that say on it?
So we have Potomac Crest, Belmont Park, Celebrate Now, and Town Celebrate.
Oh, okay.
What is that?
There's 4 different.
Celebrate.
Yeah. Can you say that again for the benefit of everyone, please?
Potomac Crest, Celebrate Now, Belmont Park, Town Celebrate.
Okay, and then across the river, what does that one say, right? The rectangle?
So that says Rappahannock HP. I'm not sure what the acronym is for, to be honest.
Is that the neon project?
Neon is right here.
Neon's right
The
there.
red- the orangey red one is.
This is neon.
That's what's been approved, just like you've got Potomac Creek's been approved. Seabass, that's just the name of
Yes.
the company. They're just LLCs at this point.
Oh, okay. Is it a bona fide project?
No, that's,
Oh, if they own the land.
yes, I was like, those are the names of the LLCs.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so the 3 yellow ones are proposed. So there's still some flexibility with those, is our understanding.
Yep.
I think.
But the red ones are approved, so those are pretty well set.
So, Madam
Yeah,
Chair,
sure, Lori.
what is the town Stafford, or town, whatever?
Town
that-
Celebrate.
That what is that?
That's a new, sorry, Chairperson, that's a new development by the silver companies to develop more residential development in that neighborhood. So they've got a broad plan, which I believe they showed to the Celebrate Virginia North community last year. And they intend to proceed with it, but it's not all wrapped up yet. There's some still flexibility with how that project is developed. But it's for
Senior
new
housing.
residential senior housing.
It's senior housing. Now, does that answer your question, Laura?
Well, I'm just, where is that's right where you're looking to go across to some degree, right? That was one of the options.
Well, yes, well, yeah, we'll wait till we get there.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm a little.
Yeah. So really, everything here is where we're considering options. So,
Okay.
yeah, that is part of the fun.
Back to, if I heard you correctly, I thought you said that the Belmont project has been approved.
We're showing that one as approved.
That has not been approved by our Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
it's,
just so you know.
Okay.
it was a development plan that was approved by your planning commission or something, but it's still got to.
Right, but it has to come to our board.
Okay, so
For the record.
thank you.
Monica?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to touch on that too. Just overall for clarity for the public, because how you're looking at this isn't necessarily how the board will look at it and say, oh, we're not planning a town celebration. That's something the developer is looking at and planning. It's not in a plan for us. So I just wanted to touch on that, so that's clear to anyone listening. Okay.
Yeah, appreciate the clarification. Yes, absolutely. Right. And then the final and probably most important thing we're looking at is the actual land. How does the land flow? Where do we have elevation, topography? We want to make sure we're taking advantage of that where possible to minimize construction impacts. One thing I'll note is that we are, our assumption is that this will be a 4-lane facility with multimodal accommodations, and we're using a 45-mile-per-hour design speed. So when I show you the corridors we're evaluating, they're not simply just lines drawn on a map. These are lines with the actual curvature that you would need to accommodate a 45-mile-per-hour roadway. So that has all been taken into account.
But it's not a 65-mile-per-hour highway.
Right. Yeah. Parkway.
This is not I-95-2. This is a local road.
Make it 60, yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. So here's the preview. These are the 4 alternatives that we will be sharing with the public on Wednesday. As you can see, the curvature is a little bit more smoothed out to accommodate that 45-mile-per-hour design speed. So, you know, these are options at this point. We feel that these are the 4 options based off of the data that we have today that will have the the least impact based off of all the factors that I just showed you. These can certainly change. We're looking to see what the public is going to say, what our stakeholders are going to say. We have a meeting with them next week. Are there things that we didn't think of? Are there things that, you know, we need to be aware of with any of these alignments? Also, there could be additional alignments that come out of this public involvement and stakeholder coordination. There could also be different permutations. For example, we may end up taking a look at what would it look like if we took option C south of the river, but then tied into option D north of the river. So there's some alternatives that might still arise out of this. So this is very preliminary, but this is based off of our data and our assessment as to what we see as 4 viable options for a river crossing in this area.
And just looking at them, there, 2 of them still would connect to Celebrate Virginia, 2 of them would not.
Yeah, which 2 sell B and C?
B and C would connect to Celebrate Virginia Parkway. A and D would not.
Can you compare this, can you flip back to the previous slide with the projects under consideration, or 2 slides? Right, I'm just trying to get a sense of where those options map over things that are in process.
Yeah, so for example, the Belmont Park development has a little bit of a gap through it. So we made sure that we took the alignment through that gap, so we're not impacting where the buildings are proposed for that alternative. For the alternative we have here, Neon actually has a 4-lane stub out on the northern edge of the plan, which would be a very nice tie-in if we're able to leverage that. So, you know, we wanted, like I said, we wanted to take advantage of proposed or existing infrastructure as much as we could to minimize the amount of disturbance that we're doing as part of this effort.
For the room, I guess,
Drew?
Madam Chair, is the proposed town celebrate any number of structures? What's being discussed?
Yeah, so that, just to refresh your memory, that's where the old golf course was.
Cannon Ridge,
Yes,
it's still there, isn't it?
no,
It's not.
it's been gone for,
And it's not by right. I think it still has to come to us for an.
right,
approval.
right.
And it hasn't.
But is it, you know, the number of like structures that are coming?
It's quite a lot. I
A
don't have
lot.
the exact number.
It's like
Not quite 1,000, but
1,000.
yeah, it's a lot.
is it, how many?
8,000.
8,000.
That's what it was originally approved for in 2002.
Just to put a scale, like the existing Celebrate, the development, that's 768 or so units, so.
Yeah. And for scale, also the Neon, Madam Chair, if I may,
Sure.
the Neon project is more than 700 units. And now it's, you know, it's multifamily, so it, you know, it's going up a little bit more, but just showing that it's, yeah.
And all those people want to cross the river.
They're small. Some of them.
Madam Chair, sorry.
Sure.
Can you go over option D? I can't see the roads. Can you just, where does that end up?
Sure.
Does that lead?
So this is.
Where's it starting? At the
So
top?
it's starting at the top. We're starting with Commerce Parkway and coming across Celebrate Virginia Parkway, and then it will curve around, and there would be a little bit of a realignment because it's currently you know, we would have the through movement going north south. But this is Green Bank Road. So Green Bank Road is currently 2-lane, so that's a big consideration, right?
Yeah.
You know, if we want this to be a 4-lane, that's going to be a significant impact. So again, we will be evaluating all these impacts and determining which of these seems to be the most viable. But we haven't found anything yet that rules it out from being studied at this point.
Yeah.
But we recognize that to bring that from a 2-lane to a 4-lane would be a significant impact.
And where does it end up?
So it comes on around south here to
Carl Silver.
Carl Silver. Sorry, I know this is where we're talking. There is an existing median break here that would be a nice tie-in location for it, and it gets it back far enough that it's out of the influence area of the intersection, because we know this is certainly a busy intersection. Sheets. Yeah, the sheets. Got it. Mhm. Yes.
And the Commerce Parkway is across the street from Plantation Drive off of 17, if you're trying to figure out where that is. And then Green Bank goes back by our large Rocky Pen Reservoir. But it's a cut-through road for people that are leaving Geico. And they come on the back way on Green Bank, and then they come up Sanford Drive right there across from the Panera, the big intersection.
Okay, yeah.
So,
And if you just see on that option A, there's a little cross halfway up it.
mhm.
That is a bridge over Sanford Drive, so it does not put all the traffic onto Sanford Drive.
Oh,
Like Celebrate Virginia,
oh, those
which
people would love
crosses
that.
Sanford Drive. This one
Yeah.
would not connect to Sanford Drive. It's a little bridge over Sanford Drive, so you don't put any traffic onto Sanford Drive.
That runs through the Del Webb.
Yes,
Yes, it keeps Sanford Drive with low traffic.
yes.
It's not doesn't create a.
Okay, any other questions on this slide?
Yes, I have a
Monica?
quick question to the bridge comment is, would there be access to the road from that area, like onto the bridge to go. Yeah, from the road that it's just.
Sanford.
Yes.
Well, you'd have to go around, but you can do it, but it will bridging over there on purpose to prevent all this traffic getting onto Sanford Drive.
Right.
So it would carry the traffic over up to Commerce Parkway, which ends up in a 4-lane when it's connected to 17.
So if you're on Stanford,
you're
you
on
have to go up
Sanford-
and around to get onto the cross over.
So if you're on Sanford, you could go to Celebrate Virginia, you could go up to, I forget what that road is, turn right and then you
Right.
get off.
Okay.
So you can, it's just that we don't want to facilitate thousands of cars getting onto Sanford
Understood,
Drive.
just curious.
We're
Yep.
protecting the local community from all that traffic.
Would you be able to do a bike ped connection?
So the bridge that we're proposing will have a bike ped facility on the bridge. And then it would be up to, because we don't tell the local jurisdictions what to do, it will be up to the local jurisdictions like the city and Stafford to decide where that bridge facility with the bike ped, where the bike ped would connect to. For example, I understand from Stafford staff that there is a bike ped facility on Celebrate Virginia. So you might, instead of wanting to carry on up to 17, you might want it to curve back to Celebrate Virginia. On the city side, you might want to connect it to Fall Hill Avenue because you have an existing facility. So that's the kind of detail which would have to be worked out down the road. So at this stage, we're just making sure that we think to include a bike ped facility on the bridge. And then either side of that would be up to the jurisdictions to decide where they want it to go. We won't be prescriptive.
Okay, we love that. Okay, Brad?
Sure. Okay, so with that, I'll kind of, last slides are really kind of an advertisement. So Wednesday night, we have a open house at over Marcia's house.
Are you making our truck route?
Marcy, if it makes you feel any better, we're not going to present a proposal for the tunnel for the VCR trail.
We'll go over the Fredericksburg District, Wednesday night from 5 to 7 p.m. We're doing an open house format. Folks don't have to show up at 5 o'clock. If you're talking to folks, they can show up at any time between that 5 to 7 window and filter through at their own leisure. Consultant staff, FAMPO staff will be there to speak with them. We're going to have a number of boards set up around the room. The content will be very similar to what you've seen tonight. We're going to be presenting information on the intent of the study, the project purpose and need, some of the relevant study area data as far as the environmental data, some of the which I showed tonight, and then where we have, as Ian mentioned, we've done some streetlight analysis that shows that this north and south of the river within the study area are very high demand destinations for people crossing the river. And then of course we'll have the proposed corridors that I just showed you, and that's really going to be kind of the main event for folks to provide input on. We're going to have comment forms available for handwritten comments. We also are going to have a little interactive exercise. We put dots on a map and give us input that way. In addition, we will also be launching an online survey that will go live on Wednesday in line with the public meeting. The survey will be live for 30 days. It's going to reflect the content that we're sharing at the public meeting. So if folks can't make it to the meeting, they can certainly do the survey from the comfort of their own home. Or folks might want to come to the meeting and not feel like sitting around and handwriting out comments. They can go home and do the survey online when they get home. But we'll also accept handwritten comments within the 30-day window as well. So our comment sheets have the mailing address on the back, so folks can drop in the box if they'd like to. So that's really the plan for Wednesday night and our first round of public input. Again, this is we're still fact finding. Right? Sure, we don't have any answers yet. We're fact finding. We want to get some feedback on these corridors, see if we're you know, just to see what the comfort level is of folks with what we have, and if there's any, you know, fatal flaws that the public is aware of that we're not, bring that to our attention. From here, once we get the input back, we're going to refine the corridors and make them a little bit more concrete as far as what we're going to advance through the study. And then from there, we'll be looking at all that traffic data we've been collected, the model data we've been collecting, really drill down on this environmental data to make it, you know, more again, more detailed, more concrete. And then we'll start to really have some evaluation criteria that we'll be bringing forward over the course of the study.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for the presentation, and we'll see you on Wednesday night.
All right, thank you all. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to and Carly are doing the Vision 2075 update.
Because again, we have some new members, I thought I should just have 4 slides just to go back in time so you know where this is coming from. And thanks to Polly, we've been working on this for a year now, and we took some steps back because people wanted time to think about this and not rush the decision. There's a vision statement. A vision statement is a written declaration clarifying your group's meaning and purpose. It describes the desired long-term results of your efforts. For example, an early Microsoft vision was, I think that's an IBM vision statement. I think that might be wrong, but anyway, a computer on every desk and in every home, right? So that's simple. You understand what the goal of the organization is. There it is. Next slide. So we showed this to you in October, and you voted to approve basically this outline of goals. It was just a statement of goals, and there you have them: accessible and connected communities, efficient mobility, safe travel, economic growth, environmentally sustainable region, and the TAC asked us to add promoting regional collaboration, etc. So there you go. Since then, we've done some more work, and we now have this for you, which was in your pack. We've tried to add objectives to those goals. So you've seen the goals. The improved quality of life is the new one at the bottom, which the TAC recommended. And there we've tried to put objectives. So what does it mean to have an accessible and connected community? So we put some ideas there. What does it mean to have efficient mobility? Increase travel time reliability and predictability. Increase options for multi-passenger travel outside of the I-95, outside of the traditional 9 to 5 work commute patterns, because now we have telework and all sorts of other things going on. So we've put a list of objectives there. I'm not going to laboriously read them through for you. You've got them in your pack, but it's one slide, right? At the moment, our entire vision, apart from the long-range transportation plan, which has 800 pages, on one slide, we've tried to capture the goals and the objectives. So there's one slide. Feel free to give us comments on those if you think one should be changed. Happy to hear from the policy committee. But there's one slide snapshot of the information.
Jason.
Thank you very much for this. One small correction that does need to be made.
Sure.
Final objective under goal D, we don't spell labor with a U in America.
Fine. Fine. I'll make it labor just for you.
Yeah, was I waiting for that for since 2 o'clock this afternoon? Oh yeah.
Somebody
First
actually,
time we gave you that.
somebody actually read the
I
presentation.
told you,
That's good.
people read, they do, okay.
Lori?
Good.
Under F,
Yes.
this promote non-motorized travel options that enable active life, okay.
For public health.
Okay, so, but as we go through, and I know we're gonna talk about Fredericksburg Go and Omni Ride, and what does that look like? And what is the return on the investment on that? Because I'm assuming you're saying, let's do buses, let's do things like that, right?
That's non-motorized.
No,
Buses
Oh,
are motorized.
I thought, okay,
This
gotcha,
is
bicycles,
walking,
bicycles,
This is
walk,
walking and bicycling.
okay. But again, we're talking about shared use paths and that sort of thing, right?
So these are general trends or general objectives we want to promote. This doesn't say we're going to put one on your street or in your district, the right way. Once we've hammered these, and feel free to change the wording on these, we can then look at where are locations that these sorts of things are needed, right? And then you can weigh in again and say, we don't need them on Dixon Road or wherever it is, right? So at the moment, it's the concepts, the objectives for the whole region. It doesn't say where. So we'll get to the where. I'm doing this slowly on purpose.
This is a real issue for us.
Yeah.
Because of our culture in Spotsy. And what in our land, in the way that our land is, and if you start putting shared use paths on roads, you're going to have an eminent domain thing happen with some areas. And the return on that investment is not there in my mind. And I would certainly, I think for the city, it's great. Because you guys have a lot more walkability
Mhm.
and that sort of thing. For the county, it's different for us.
Dan,
Well, I just wanted to, what about in the parts of Spotsy that are closer to the city?
Well, that's my district and we, if you did the shared use path down Route 2, which was initially planned, you are going to be impacting a number of people along the way. If you think about Route 2, think about all those houses that are on Route 2.
I mean, Marcy's about to tell you how much she wants that tunnel under I-95 for the pedestrian connection, I promise you.
Because it's not just, it's widening the road. And then I mean, it's 20 more feet of frontage for a shared use path.
I'm making light of this, but actually it's an important point. And the point I think is that the region is not homogeneous. It's not the same everywhere. And people have different views and they're entitled to have different views.
Yeah.
So we need to, as a regional body, chairperson, try to craft something that's sort of everybody can live with and everybody thinks is aspirational. And then we move to the individual cases of where and when and how. So if you think this isn't a good sort of overall set of objectives, because number 3 is no good, then say so. We will panel beat this. We already have. The TAC asked us to add quality of life because it wasn't initially there, right? So if you tell us to add something or take something away, that's what you all are here for. So feel free to tell us, we don't like point number whatever, we would prefer this other thing. So we'll change the word to a few things. But the intent is to try and create sort of broadly for the whole region a set of objectives.
Well, and I understand that, but I'm also learning that once it's down on paper, then it becomes a real thing and it becomes something that people work towards. And I just want to protect my citizens in my district from,
Land takes.
yeah.
No, I get it.
But keep in mind, this is Vision 2075, like we'll all be dead. So we need to be looking toward who will be living in the area. And if Spotsylvania keeps throwing up all those apartment complexes.
Not me, not me.
Those people and the young people they don't drive as much. They need the connectability that's non-motorized or could be motorized with the buses. And I agree, Partlow, no, we're not putting shared use path down in Partlow. But the areas around the city, you need something to
Right.
connect.
Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, I mean, yes, as Marcy said, we'll all be dead when we're talking about the vision of.
I'd like my legacy not to be my name's mud and.
But let's talk about the legacy part, because if we grow even just 1%, I was doing some of the math before the meeting, even at just 1% growth from now till 2075, the region will increase by 68%. If you do 2% over time, we more than double, and it's like you multiply by like 2.6, essentially, our entire regional footprint. And we had that presentation. The folks who were on the board at the time might remember when the person from the Jarrett Walker consultancy came. They talked about the geometry of roads and driving and how that just we just run out of space for it. That just the math isn't there. So yeah, we talk about our legacy, and I think, and this is up for debate, but people are going to want their amenities closer to where they are. Otherwise, we are going to be stuck in traffic these people will be stuck in traffic all of their lives. And I think you know, I think over time, there will be a larger and larger call for bringing amenities closer to where people live, just, you know, small shops and things like that. And that, I was actually really impressed to see the improved quality of life. One, because that's the whole reason I would hope that we're all here, is to improve the quality of life for our residents. But also, you know, and some of those things that were in there, it makes sense in a world where people are going to want their amenities closer to where they live. And I think we're gonna see folks, you know, starting to ask for that more and more. I'm already seeing it with when I talk to younger people. I mean, yes, like there are certain demographics, they want nothing to do with it, completely understand, respect it. But for those folks who might still be around by then, there's a much sharper demand for that kind of thing. And I think it's worth looking at in a world that, you know, isn't going to resemble much of anything like it does today.
Yeah. And I'll say it's not just the younger generation. My mom will be 80 in the summer. And when she moved, she lives in Virginia Beach. And when she moved, she wanted a walkable community. She wanted to be able to get to her grocery store and her doctor's office and all of those things without getting in a car. Not because she can't drive, she can drive, but because that's what she wanted. Also because of a healthier lifestyle. So.
I just have one point, and I won't bore you guys with this, but you know, it's interesting to me that that's where you believe we're going, yet everybody that comes to us that wants to put up another apartment building, that wants to put up another neighborhood that's zone commercial, says commercial's dead. There is no commercial. That's what there's mixed use has not worked out the way it was planned to work out in our, I'm telling you, learn from our mistakes. It has not. And they'll say, well, we need more rooftops, right? We need more rooftops to make the commercial tough. So I don't know. While I respect your opinion, and certainly I understand the whole 15-minute city or whatever it's called. I get the concept of that. I don't know really how that is going to come to fruition in our current, the way that we're set up, because, you know, a lot of the commercial that we've had zone commercial, even with the mixed use stuff, there's no commercial in it. It just doesn't happen because there's not enough rooftops to support it.
I think there's enough rooftops, but I think Amazon has taken all that business. And Ian?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I wonder, for me, this point makes more sense. This objective makes more sense under goal C than in goal F, right? I don't think of non-motorized active transit as being a quality of life issue. I think of it as a safety issue, because I think, you know, people are going to walk and ride their bike and get places, particularly people who don't have access to cars. Right? And if you go down Route 2, right, you see people biking on the shoulder, whatever that is, right? Certainly when I head down that, you see people moving through that corridor and with non-motorized means. So I think that by not providing the infrastructure, we're not stopping people from doing it. We're just telling them that they're going to do it in an unsafe way, right? So for me, I would think that we should maybe move that point under goal C rather than goal F, because I don't think non-motorized travel is a quality of life issue. I think it's a safety issue for the people who don't have access to automobiles.
I think it's
Right.
both.
I mean, it can be both, right? But I mean, you know, the alternative to, by not building the shared use path, you're not stopping people from walking and riding their bike. You're just forcing them to do it in unsafe.
Right. And Route 2 isn't the most unsafe road. It's, if you see them on Mine Road,
Yeah.
biking, I'm like, that is like taking your life and just gambling it.
So I think
that road's like this.
I think as like safety as a goal, but I think we need to think about safety for all users, right? And that sometimes that's an infrastructure question.
All right, Ian?
So would it be to your liking if we took that, moved it up to safe travel, and reworded that to say something like promote the safety of non-motorized travel that enable an active lifestyle? Or you want to get rid of the active lifestyle?
No, I think it's fine. It's because it's both. Yeah. No. See, there are public health benefits to it anyways.
Like the safety of, and then move it up to safe travel.
I think that's fair.
Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with, I'm fine with it. My point is that we want to make sure that we're not, that if we want to do shared use paths or that sort of thing, you have to look at the return on the investment. How much time is going to be spent on that, right? How many people are going to actually utilize it? Downtown, your walking path, that gets used all the time. But in the county, it's not as much of a thing, I don't think.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond on this topic and to that, because obviously we deal with something similar. And in my mind, it's not, oh, we're gonna put shared use paths through all of Stafford County, because that makes absolutely no sense. But there are some places that are growing faster than others where we should look at them. You know, I have my district, Route 1 runs all the way through, and I have people who, even with special needs, will walk all the way up Route 1 and across that bridge on Garrisonville just to go work at Target and greet people, you know? And that's just one example. And we've had someone who actually lost their life recently at the intersection up at Garrisonville and Route 1. So I appreciate that it's in there. I think that we do still need to look at it. Obviously, when it comes to those decisions in the county, you know, there are only a certain number of places we're gonna look at to do that. You know, it's not gonna be long stretches of, you know, down into Rock Hill.
Out of my district.
So I know you're closer, so, but, when it comes down to it, for me, I'm looking at, you say return on investment. I don't want people to lose their lives, you know? And sometimes we have to make those hard decisions to figure out what's the safer thing to do. So I like having it on there and continuing the discussion.
And another key point for context, Madam Chair, is that
Mhm.
FAMPO doesn't build anything in jurisdictions. FAMPO tries to do studies, do policies, and we let the decisions of proceeding with the project to the local board. FAMPO can't implement a project in any of your jurisdictions. We make funding available, we make studies available, we make data available, we encourage certain behaviors, but at the end of the day, the county or the city has to vote, proceed or not proceed with the project. But I'll tell you, if you have to put a bike path in a certain place, that's not.
Or we'll just make ours equine paths and then.
Okay, so, I think we've talked about this enough.
We've beaten this horse enough, right?
We just, as a staff, just get a show of hands or something to see whether people are happy with this general direction.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
Thumbs up. Okay,
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Madam Chair.
all right, let's move on to transit. Okay, Jamie and Dr. Schneider.
For once, I'll say nothing except to introduce our two speakers. Welcome, Jamie. And you know both of our speakers, so.
All right. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'd like to reintroduce myself for those who don't know me, and I will apologize to CTAC already because you see this excitement. But my name is Jamie Jackson. I'm the Director of Transit and Transportation for the City of Fredericksburg, for GO. So what I'm going to chat with you a little bit about today, and just so everybody knows, we are renamed to Fredericksburg GO, or you can say Fredericksburg Regional Transit, or FXP GO, just in case anybody needed the acronym. So I'll try to go a little bit brief or a little bit quickly because I know Dr. Schneider is behind me. But what I'll go over first is who we are, who is Fredericksburg Regional Transit. Then I'll move into our regional partnerships. I'll talk a little bit about funding and how we're funded today. And then I'll go over some of our projects that I'll identify as kind of regional in scope and regional touching. And if anybody has any questions, they can ask them at the end, or if Madam Chair pleases, we can do them all at the end after Dr. Schneider does his presentation. So Fredericksburg Regional Transit was formed in 1996. We were formed very humbly. We were in the old Greyhound station. Some of you may remember that on Route 1. And that is where Central currently sits, which is our main bus station. We're currently the only local transit provider for the Fredericksburg region, serving, and when I say local, obviously the OmniRide comes down for meter service, but we provide service to the 3 localities now. So that's Spotsylvania County, Stafford County, and the city of Fredericksburg. Today, we offer our customers 16 routes, and we have 30 body on chassis transit style vehicles in our fleet. So our transit is a little bit different than many others. We do have standard routes, but what we operate off of is deviated fixed routes. So if a customer calls and wants route service up to 3/4 of a mile off a route, we will service that customer via a phone call. All they have to do also is call us. We also offer commuter service that connects to VRE. Our standard operating hours, excluding our VRE connecting service and our Eagle Express, which is our college/university line, is 6:30 a.m. to about 8:30 p.m. We have a pretty large staff for service our size, and that's mainly because we used to be primarily comprised of full-time workers, but we have 68 full-time employees. 38 of those are full-time and about 30 of those are part-time staff. So we are growing. You may recognize both of these facilities. In 2007, we opened the Lawrence A. Davies Transit Center. That is, of course, off Route 1. It's also known as Fredericksburg Go Central or Central. Today, it's the location that serves as our main transit hub and also our administration building. Almost a decade later, we opened our operations and maintenance buildings. Those reside in Spotsylvania County. That's in the Bowman Complex, which is a short ride up for Dixon Park. This is where our operators meet in the morning, our buses pull out, and where we maintain and repair our vehicles. So this is a snapshot of our routes. We have 5 routes in the city, 5 in Stafford, and 3 in Spotsylvania County. Our Eagle Express route that serves the university is our first route that offers 30-minute frequency. Last year, you can see in the routes below, we began offering earlier service on select routes. So that's around 6:30 in the morning. And we'll continue to expand that service offering. Our goal is that moving forward, we continue to expand in Saturday morning service. Right now, we only have Eagle Express that operates Saturday, but we want to operate beyond the Eagle. At present, our commuter service is suspended based on VRE ridership and staffing issues. However, we hope and have plans to connect back to VRE in the summer. So we received a grant from the Department of Rail and Public Transportation to offer zero fare service. However, it's most easily explained as fare-free service, as the customer does not have to physically pay a fare. This program began in January of 2022, and we have seen significant increases in ridership since we reduced a barrier, and it indeed is a barrier for people to use our service. This, however, is a grant-funded program, and this will conclude in February, or conclude in 2026. At that time, we'll need to work with our funding partner. Sorry.
It says 25, is that right?
2025 is the last year where we actually get a portion of the dollars. In 2026 is when the actual program ends, when there will be no contribution from DRPT. So that is correct. So at that time, once we end the fare-free program, it will be up to the municipalities, which will actually start working with you in the next several months to decide whether you want to move forward with continued fare-free service, which we'll analyze as part of our transit strategic plan, or if you want to reinstitute fares for the system. So that will be a discussion that'll come back to many of you as Board of Supervisor members. So before we were fare free, you can see our costs. Our average or our standard cost is $1.25. That's what most riders pay for fare. We did offer a half fare for those who are disabled, Medicaid recipients, and or who were in certain programs that did get services, social services. They also paid a reduced fare. So this is our ridership, and it is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, which is a good thing. As mentioned before, you can see we're growing. You can see that our ridership since the beginning of the fiscal year is been above pre-pandemic levels. So that's exciting for us. You can see 2021 through 2024, 24 is the dark blue. On the right, you can see that our ridership has remained above pre-pandemic levels and continues to grow. And we anticipate with the warmer weather. Don't say that and increased service, that we'll see more riders. And I personally have seen a lot newer riders who are finding out that we're fare free. So hopefully that's some marketing and rebranding there.
If I may, thank you for this table. quick question,
Sure.
because I wanted to make sure I understood this right. So the gold bars FY 22, that was when Fare Free was introduced,
Yes.
right? So I'm looking between February to March. I mean, was that essentially an immediate doubling of ridership as soon as it went Fare Free?
Well, close to it, yes. Yes, and that was us advertising the fact that we have fare free service.
Right. I mean, it's obviously,
And if you think about fare free service, when you ride our routes, most people do not have a one-seat ride. It's usually at least two. So if you are basically reducing or eliminating an hour's worth of minimum wage out of somebody's cost, they're able to use the service more, whether it's them, their family.
yeah. I was just surprised to see that sudden jump. I mean, that was immediate. So.
All right, we partner with a variety of localities, obviously city, Spotsylvania, Stafford County, but we also partner with University of Mary Washington, Germanna, Community College, and those are the ones that partner financially, but we also work with Healthy Generations, of course, GWRC and FAMPO, and obviously we connect OmniRide as far as working with them as one of our partners. Especially they've been very generous as it relates to funding through FAMPO. We also are guided by our Public Transit Advisory Board, each of which the localities have at least 2 members to represent them on that board. There are subcommittees within that board as well, and I've got those listed to the right. So most of our funding comes from the Federal Transit Administration. As you can see, operating expenses are split by both the feds and the localities. Capital expenses receive state support with typically an 80-20 split. The key takeaway that I want you to get out of this slide is that our funding is leveraged by the amount of local dollars received. So if you look at our total budget, this is our total budget on the right, capital and operating, you can see that in FY 2025, which is this upcoming fiscal year, almost 6% of the local funding leverages almost 94% of federal and state funding. I'll also note that we are also still utilizing CARES Act funding to offset the jurisdictional subsidy, as we have since the funds became available during the pandemic. And that is one of the reasons why we're able to leverage so many dollars, because thanks to many of you on the board through GWRC, we were able to get the Vanpool Alliance at $3.25 million in CARES Act funding. So our regional transit projects, I'm going to go over a few of them just and very briefly. So the main goal of our transit strategic plan is to create a strategic blueprint outlining desired changes that will improve transit services throughout our service area with existing funding structure. So this is just like any other plan, constrained, fiscally constrained. This is an opportunity for Fredericksburg Go to look at our system, re-examine the priorities of stakeholders and riders, and make difficult choices concerning on how we provide service in an efficient and cost-effective manner. Currently, we are working on Chapter 3, which is our planned services and route modifications, and that ultimately means that we're analyzing our routes. And we've had to make some hard choices with some of your staffers. This is a depiction of the draft network concepts that we continue to refine. We evaluate system performance, opportunities for improvement, input from our riders, our stakeholders, and staff, and then apply transit service design principles, like avoiding duplicate service in order to ensure that we have routes that are the most beneficial to our customers. You've heard about this project before, and this is funded with GWRC Vanpool Alliance funding. This has we have just completed our engineering and design phase. What I want you to take away from this slide is this transit security fiber project will lay the fiber conduit that will connect us to Spotsylvania County through the city and obviously connect to an existing gap that's between Spotsylvania County and the city. What I explained to it in simple terms is we'll have access to the city infrastructure, whether that's HVAC systems, our network. We're basically in our own little desert there. So this fiber security project will actually support infrastructure connecting both localities. Our commuter transit parking lot in 2023, Fredericksburg Regional Transit acquired 2 lots that the city owned that are adjacent to Central. The plan for this lot is to be used as a multimodal commuter parking lot and transit parking. After the purchase, we were notified that the same lot was planned as part of the Route 3 STAR study and I-95 off-ramp improvement, which was slated to be constructed in 2027, FY 27. Ultimately, the plan for the project will continue with transit evaluating additional infrastructure that may support electric charging stations on site. One of the things that we're doing is using Spotsylvania County's model, where we are going to add infrastructure to this lot using primarily federal funds, to promote electric charging stations at this lot. So this is something that we're trying to do, basically using some plans that Spotsylvania had for one of its commuter lots. And this project will be funded with STARS, primarily STARS money, but also it'll have a federal, state, and local contribution. The last project that I'll talk about is the project, the project to include the new Fredericksburg Transit VRE bus route from the 208 park and ride lot with express service to the Fredericksburg Amtrak VRE station. This project includes 2 new transit buses, a new shelter, bike parking, and signage from Route 208 park and ride lot. Operating assistance for the new bus service and marketing funding. The goal is to provide an alternative to single occupancy vehicle traffic or single occupancy vehicle use, reducing peak period congestion on I-395 and 95, resulting in lower tolls. And this project is funded through the NBTC, the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. And this project is July 1st this year. So that is a quick overview of Fredericksburg Regional Transit. I hope I stuck to my time. If I did not, sorry about. Okay, oh, great. So I have left room for questions, but Madam Chair, if you want to go straight into Dr. Schmatt's presentation, I'll leave that up to you.
I think we'll ask questions now. Are there questions for Jamie?
Great job.
Yeah, thank you. Very thorough. Thank you very much.
And sorry if I talked too fast. But
Yeah, I just have, and it's okay. If I can, maybe you can get me the numbers again that we've asked for on the route, the ridership on the route.
Oh, the per route ridership.
The per route ridership.
So I've showed at FAMPO, every quarter, your total ridership numbers, which are looking quite good. And the question was just, can we get it broken down by route? And I don't have the data.
I can get that over. I think we already sent that over to Paul and Rodney, but I will get it over to Ian to get.
That would be great.
Okay.
I would like to see that. And when we talk about, I know we're tapping into lots of grants right now,
Sure.
but once the grant is gone, then you gotta make up that difference.
Sure.
So when we're looking at our budgets, I'm always thinking 3 years down the line, what grants are gonna come? When's that bill gonna come due? So I'm curious, when you guys get these grants and you do modifications to your routes or whatever, do you come up with a cost per rider of what that would be, or how do you determine?
We have a cost per rider for our routes, but what we're doing for the route modifications is basically either trying to reduce underperforming segments of the route or reduce underperforming stops. What we're seeing now, and I'll just say with all of our routes, is that we provide too many stops. We stop constantly, which has an impact on our service and on-time performance. Trying to pull some of that back. I will say, to address your comment on when will that bill come due, we are having conversations with your local reps now about FY 2026, because that's when the bill will come due. What we've done with your county administrator or city manager is let them know where we are, what we're asking for today, which I'll say, for example, if the bill is $188,000 with the locality, what it would have been if we didn't have CARES Act funding. So what we have tried to do, which may be to our benefit or maybe to the chagrin of all, is that we've strategically used the CARES Act money to lessen the impact on the localities for the past since we received the funding. And you'll start seeing, I'll call it the real number in 2026. But our goal has been to share that information with the county administrator every single year so that they're aware that it has been offset with this grant funding that will, as everybody knows, for most people, it's already disappeared.
Right, and we're seeing that in other areas now with the schools and ESSER funding going away and that bill coming due and safer grants coming due and all of that. So I appreciate that very much. And yeah, if you could get that to Ian, that would be very helpful. Do you have an idea of would your rates after the grants are all gone? And we have to go back to a rate. Are you thinking that it would just resume where it was, or would there be a rate increase?
I would say it's gonna be an increase from previous years.
Okay,
However, it's not an increase due to more service. It's basically
costs,
cost.
yeah, okay, thank you so much.
All right, Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, just looking at those charts and how many more people can be served with fare free. I know we're not talking till 26 when these questions have to come out, but just saying it now, I just think it's so vital to do this. I mean, even just viewing it as a social service and not getting into the transit network part of it necessarily, but also because, I mean, the amount and Jamie, I don't know if you have these numbers readily available at any time. In terms of people that it transports, the cost of this versus what we're seeing for constructing roads or maintaining roads, I mean, those costs have gotten astronomical, and I would love to see how this compares because, based off at least of what I've seen previously, a lot of the transit options seem to be a much better use of public funds in terms of being able to move people and then reduce traffic as well. Whether or not you see someone using it, I mean, these numbers don't lie. And I think it's just super important that we continue to look at fare free as an option and see how that compares. Just because I do think it's been a very good use of taxpayer dollars.
I mean, Madam Chair, just really quick to follow up on that comment, what we've asked for the consultant to do for part of the transit strategic plan is weigh the cost of getting those fares in with the cost of hiring an additional mechanic, someone to count the funds, et cetera. The fare boxes, which cost about 15 grand a piece. So we've asked them to compare that. So when y'all ask those questions of us moving forward, should we go fare free or what's the cost? We'll have that information available for you at the end of the strategic plan.
Okay, Drew and then Crystal.
Can we go to the pie chart slide, please? Thanks, Madam Chair. Great presentation. Really informative. For example, have those numbers remained kind of steady state contributions?
They have for the past since 2022.
Okay. But, so after
Next fiscal year.
the actual 25 is over, 26, that'll change.
Yes.
Are you working on estimates for that? Is that what you're talking about?
I can give you the numbers. I don't have them with me, but I can give you the numbers of what it would be today.
Oh, you can.
Yes,
Okay.
and some of the numbers may fluctuate, so you may see $12 million budget, but we have a lot of capital projects that are covered by the GWRC FAMPO Alliance funding. So the more funding that we get, for example, from the FAMPO Alliance, produce local contributions.
Just to your point, because to your point about grants running out, as they're running out, how this particular year with assessment year, trying to stay ahead of budgeting for when things do run out. Like in other words, if we only had that steady state afterwards.
And I can see if I can pull the letter and get that information to this group so that you can see what it would have been if there were no CARES Act funding, because the CARES Act funding really has helped us. We've had probably over $5 million in CARES Act funding that we've kind of stretched across several years.
And I agree with you, social contract type thing, we're helping people that really need it.
Yeah.
Okay, the people that are using us having the other option. So
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the bottom line for us in the future. So we just got to figure out a way to be prepared for it. So that was,
If you share that information, Jamie, with Ian.
I'll do it with Ian.
Send it out.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, Crystal?
So just to Lori's point about giving us the stop map where like the ridership and what stops they're going to.
Sure.
Is there any way to find out where a lot of these people work as well? Like what you're going to a certain stop, but like to see if there's like big employers, like for example, Publix or something, like the Stafford County, grocery store. Because it would, what we could then do is partner with economic development to look at sustaining maybe a grant program through these jobs because they don't want to lose these lower wage earners and they know that they need assistance. And so I know in a lot of other localities, they'll get the businesses to kind of chip it because they know it's cheaper than having to hire additional help. And, if they're getting great employees that are maybe coming in from the city of Fredericksburg to live here, then they can go work in Stafford. Then, yeah, and it's reliable help and service that we could maybe do something like that instead of it falling back on the county tax roll. And we could offer up assistance through our economic development groups to maybe help with that. So it'd be really helpful for us to be able to target those businesses and say, hey, if this free ride goes away, you might lose X amount of employees potentially.
Okay, great questions, great presentation.
I
Thank you, Jamie.
just have one more item. Can you go to the last slide, please? This, Madam Chair, comes from a question that you had. We are working on the design for the new vehicles, which will ultimately be 35-foot buses, the last one question. So it will say serving Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, Stafford. So we are on it.
Awesome.
I'll let you know.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Schneider.
Oh, you're gonna fund that.
All right.
No. Publix.
Couple of items, got some
Thank you.
annual reports for OmniRide.
Where's our
So
present?
I also have challenge points. So I think I have for the new service we launched in Spotsylvania.
Well, you gave me one already.
Share, like.
Fine. Now my kids each get it.
There you go. You had to pick your favorite.
No, it's just been sitting on my iPad. They looked at it like, so like, sometimes I get things. All right. So knowing that I'm standing between all this going home, including me, wanted to spend a little bit of time. We're going to be a little less granular in terms of lefts and rights, as it's a different service area than those that are in the room. But it's very important that we get that picture of what's occurring. So I want to provide a mission overview, go over our services, and then key issues and trends. Governmentally, PRTC, the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission, which has service not only Potomac but Rappahannock, was founded in 1986, not for the purpose of running mass transit. It was, well, bus service in its footprint. It was actually created to establish the motor fuels tax to collect revenues to create choo-choo trains, BRE. The issue was NVTC already existed, the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, which was created in 1964 to govern the Virginia portion of WMATA. Well, if you put all that resource into NVTC, suddenly all the members, and every member of NVTC at the time had to be a paying member of WMATA. Now you've got WMATA, no one in Stafford or Prince William has WMATA, it becomes a governance mess. So in other words, what we'll have is we'll have Northern Virginia, and then we'll have Southern Northern Virginia or Northern Southern Virginia, depending on where you're from, down I-95, and that creates the concept. Originally, I believe there were the 5 jurisdictions of Fredericksburg, Stafford, Prince William, Manassas, and Manassas Park. And then eventually Spotsylvania was added with the extension of the station. We work very, very, very closely with NVTC, our regional peers. We're good friends with NVTA. Matter of fact, last year, Josh Baker, who's the CEO of Dash in Alexandria, he and I did a big presentation about the hidden cost of fare collection and the benefits of going zero fare. If you're interested, I'm sure he and I could come down and give a policy presentation. We are zero fare local, but we are not zero fare commuter because we generate too much revenue and the feds pay for it. So there's some different pros and cons. But as you can see, we work, well, very proud of the fact we got 2 awards from TSA in the last month. One for their partnership award we were given the award at DCA Airport at Reagan National. And then this past Thursday, we received the Base Gold Standard Award for excellence in safety and security, especially security in 17 separate content areas. It's the second time we've won the award in 4 years.
Whoa.
You can see we have a big old board, 6 votes out of Prince William County. They are always the chair. You can see Spotsylvania County, Stafford, et cetera. And we also have members of the CTV or designee and 2 members of the House of Delegates and 1 from the Senate. Who is the membership from the FAMPO jurisdictions? There we are. There's our membership from Fredericksburg, Tanisha Allen, Monica Gary. Of course, our alternates, Meg Bomke, Pamela Young, Deborah Fraser, Lori Hayes, and then Jacob Lane and Kevin Marshall. So those are the individuals that show up once a month on Thursdays, occasionally, like maybe twice a year for a special committee meeting, et cetera. And what we do is we actually talk a lot about transportation policy in the region. We get a presentation from DRE, et cetera. Lots of information is shared. So how do we get from Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission to an Omni ride? When I arrived here, our buses were teal. They said PRTC. You're putting where you're going on the back of the bus. Very good. Because ours was put on the side and it said, proudly serving the communities of Prince William County, Manassas, and Manassas Park. In letters about that tall, the side of the bus, on dedicated fixed lanes, as the bus goes 60 miles an hour down the highway. No one saw that. No one knew the difference between an Omni ride, which was our commuter service, and an Omni lane. True story, when we were going into Quantico with one of our buses, the train arm came down, broke off. It wasn't our driver's fault. It was the train arm. The police chief called our staff and said, hey, Omni Ride, do you know who owns the OmniLink buses? How do I get hold of the PRTC people? No one had a clue. We had a problem. We had an identity crisis. So we switched over to Omni Ride. It was our premier service. Plus that way our local customers got premier service too. It's not just for commuters. It's for everybody. So that's where we started moving and did great. It's our brand name for services. We have really, really robust services on 66, originally I-95. We use the commuter express lanes. We love FredEx. We love the dedicated lanes. We're very excited about putting together a proposal right now for Transurban to potentially move from, I don't know where on I-95 to have bi-directional lanes all day as a potential option. That's exciting because that will help us tremendously. We become a lot more reliable. We do have our local service in Prince William, Manassas Park. We have our flex service, our ride share. Who are we? About 275 full-time employees. By law, we must contract out. Public employees are not permitted as subunits of state government. The commissions are considered subunits of state government. We're the only commission in the Commonwealth that directly operates the taxation role responsibility and operates service. And VTC does not operate a single route. So I get the joy of all the pleasure and headaches of the board and the policy and the taxation issues and the motor fuels tax crisis and all those things. And I have to worry from service from 4 o'clock in the morning all the way till midnight, 7 days a week. Luckily not service 7 days a week, but our building is open almost 7 days. So that's the type of service we run. We are a full service system, meaning we design our services, we develop our services, we do all of it in-house, and then we contract out for those services, but those operate inside of our buildings. We buy the buses, we buy the majority of equipment, and we ultimately cover the cost for those items.
Can you work on?
I-95 corridor service, as you can see, we have didn't put all the lines on because at a certain point it just becomes a rainbow of insanity. Instead, you can see where all the park and ride lots are based on the pins. We added these back in 2019, right before the pandemic. By the way, those were the first routes to come back in our entire service for commuters. They were the first ones because the vast majority of employees living in the region that are commuting up, believe it or not, are independent. And you can't conduct wars, national defense, et cetera, family living. So that is a key element that is very different from this region. You do have a lot more people who are in that defense economy that must travel into Quantico or must travel up to Belvoir or up to the Pentagon, DC for those military duty-oriented programs. And that changes it a bit in terms of different commuters. We've seen it firsthand in terms of our service out in 66. First route to bounce back there was to Pentagon. So we use the entire I-95 program locally and toll funded, meaning we do have everything below here is toll revenue funded or some type of grant program.
We do have a few routes that operate in the Prince William corridor. And that's one of our challenges right now. Because Prince William was funding commuter routes before there was even a thing called the express lanes. We were in diamond lanes in the good old days. So one of the challenges we face is as ridership has declined, we've cut back services, but there's a certain point at which if we cut any further, we'll lose the ridership. What's the gain? So it's a really big existential crisis for the commuter services. However, there are some ways out of it that we won't get into tonight. But we are really, really excited about servicing this area because we are that direct shot to the Pentagon. We are that direct shot into DC. It is a reality. We are faster to the DC line than VRE. No question. They beat us getting in and out of DC. But if you take a train out of Union Station or LaFont and you take a bus, we get you home before VRE does. But what we're doing is we don't travel the same places VRE does with Union Station, things like that. So just some different elements there. We have a lot of ridership that's coming across from this part of the county. A lot of their ridership is actually coming from this part of the county because that interstate is a barrier. It just is. We've all experienced it. We know what it's like to get through certain intersections. You don't know this area as well, so I'll cut to the chase on this. Fairfax, I-66, there's Leesburg, etc. We do have a route that comes up into the Reston area, connecting with the Silver Line. It's going to take years for that to pick up because we're the only north-south transit service in the entire region. Fairfax has a couple of routes, but they tend to come in this way. Very little goes up and down Route 28 for us. But as you can see, we're out in Haymarket, Gainesville, Valls Ford. There's the Manassas battlefield for perspective. We are proposing services to head out to Front Royal as well as Warrenton. Front Royal is really interesting because the Shenandoah Regional Commission, just like the GWRC, their versions of Shenandoah Regional, they had already put a grant together to bring back their long distance commuter service that went away for the pandemic. So while we were looking at the option, we found out they were doing it. So we're going to look at our chocolate and their peanut butter and really be able to pull services from Front Royal here the entire length to connect in that park and ride lot and then connect to our entire network of services, including local services. We're trying to figure that out. So now what we'll have is to your point, employers. Can we go to Micron? Can we go to downtown Manassas? Can we go to major employers? Now they can recruit at Front Royal without having to increase traffic load on 66 to do it. As you can see, lots of services inbound at 4:40 in the morning, which means our dispatchers are in the office at 3:50. We are omnipresent. That is where we are in DC. It just gives you a perspective. So if you want to head on in and you have a job up here in the State Department corridor, or if you want to access Metro, we have passengers who work out at the Naval Observatory. I've met our passengers who work with the Director of Policy and Research for the Federal Transit Administration, rides our services and rides down here to the Navy Yard in a one-seat ride. So what we do is we have a lot of routes that come in, connect over to LaFont, and then head down to the Navy Yard for services. We connect them with all the way down to the waterfront. When you're trying to get to the Anthem, you can take OmniRide services to your job by the DC waterfront. A lot of opportunities. Our local bus service, we did a route. We're starting a route restructure in June 2024. So what you see, you went road today, a lot of it will remain the same in terms of standing at a bus stop, but we're shortening how long it takes to get from point A to point B. People want to get places faster. And we changed our community the last. We need to tie those things together. We also know, for example, Prince William County is adding what's called a Quartz District, which is going to be their version of the mosaic around close to the McCourt building, Minnieville and Prince William Parkway, if you know that area. So they'll be developing that. So we're starting now. We can start to have the routes in place to build the development that will be built and that will come. Whole Foods, etc. We redid the Western service area in 2019, literally 2 months before the pandemic. Even then, it should have tanked. It didn't. But within a year, the ridership during the pandemic surpassed what it was before. So route performance mattered, and part of it was we were zero fare. Zero fare took a huge barrier out of the equation, and it becomes an interesting philosophical question, and we're going to probably get to experience that conversation this fiscal year. Connections to Tyson's Metro in Springfield. So if you want to get somewhere else on Metro, fine. You want to go in for a concert, an activity, we can take care of that too.
And then we have 2 micro transit zones, one in Dumfries, Quantico, and then also one in Manassas Park. There's our local routes today. As you can see, here's downtown Manassas. We serve the VRE station, hospitals, Northern Oak Community College. The other, we have the Manassas Park VRE station. That's our, we have a fixed route that connects there, and this is our micro transit zone. Super popular in terms of getting people out. We have a lot of one-time rides from people. They're getting out to go to work. They're getting home with someone else. But this is a lot of rooftops. It's not a lot of retail. And that's a problem for transit. Because once someone leaves for work, you have no more trip generators the rest of it until they go home. So lots and lots and lots of rooftops. You need it, but it really only works well in the morning or in the afternoon, or whatever your commute pattern is for that neighborhood. The other thing in a neighborhood like this, heavily Hispanic neighborhood, and tremendous number of trades. You drive down the streets, and by the way, you'll know this in your neighborhoods. You drive past the apartment complexes, you see the vans that are pulling and work trucks all outside. That indicates they're not going to be using transit. They're not commuters. They're the tradespeople. They're doing the work in the immediate area that are helping keeping your highly residential areas alive. So it's just a different perspective on that. And as you can see, we serve all the way into next to Quantico, Fuller Road, all the way up to the Woodbridge VRE Street, Prince William County. This route here connects from Woodbridge all the way across to Manassas. So you truly can get across the entire county within 3 routes. You can get from Nova Community College to Nova Community College. It'll take you a while, but you can do it on 3 buses. That's not bad for what is 24 miles. Won't get into the revenue. It's in your slide deck. But this gives you a sense of what's occurring. I do want to point out FY21, when we went into the pandemic, and we kept without a pandemic, we would probably be staring down the barrel of $17 million a year generated from passenger fares. 5.4 million. The issue we've got is we're serving the same number of people or more, it's month to month. They're only riding twice a week now, where it used to be they rode 4 to 5 times a week. That's the problem. And so at a table like this, if you all lived in the same neighborhood, or let's say you all rode a particular trip, Pentagon, you guys ride on Mondays, you guys ride on Tuesdays, one of you rides on Monday too. So the thing is, if we try to take the route out, all of you come, well, you guys come with torches. You guys come with pitchforks. Meet us in the middle because we're taking away your trip. And that's one of the problems we're facing right now is everyone is impacted just only 1 or 2 days a week, but you still bring your torches and pitchforks. So we're trying to figure out how to get through this. What has kept us going? As you can see, we used to get 4.8 million from the feds. Holy camoli, is this pandemic thing going to end? No, it is not. We're using the last of it this year. We're back to using the federal allotment because our COVID funds are gone. But Jamie's done a fantastic job keeping those funds buoyed because we were so reliant on commuter fares that just didn't come back. Meanwhile, the directive from our board was no layoffs. So we use natural attrition to shrink down. But as we tried to put service back on the street, we had a challenge getting workforce. Stack that with inflation and all those other issues, we're having a huge problem. I just did want to show one of the big issues we got is motor fuels tax. It is a regional crisis. It's hitting WMATA, it's hitting Fairfax Connector, it will be hitting VRE. I think their cycle is going to be in about 4 years. So there's going to be major crises for every transit system in Northern Virginia. But what's great is there was a joint resolution passed by the General Assembly to study how to fund transit in Northern Virginia, and it will apply in a waterfall effect to anyone that wants to use it. But for example, so this is gallons pumped, and an illustration of if gallon pumped had just stayed at 3%, how much gas would we still be consuming? This is how much gas we're actually consuming. The delta of actual gallons, regardless of price, regardless of revenue, we're talking buckets of fuel. 21 million gallons versus 12.5 million gallons. And I think this is for Prince William County. I would usually clarify that. No, this is for everybody. I thought this is for everybody. So you can see
how much less fuel is being pumped. So everyone who has a motor fuels tax, you are collecting less money, period, by gallons, but it's indexed to inflation. So the good news is it makes you think you're doing okay because this is what you're actually collecting. Whew. Thank goodness, because we were collecting this back here. But here's your problem. The only reason this goes up is inflation. So your actual costs are gone, or the revenue you just generated is gone because it's indexed to inflation, whether you're buying concrete or you're buying labor. This is a false delta. It has already been spent. So that's the problem. If you had just maintained 3% gallons pumped per year and indexed to inflation, you would be bringing in $31 million a year instead of 12. So that's an example of the motor fuel tax crisis. It's going to hit everybody. There's no question. It's just, obviously, as inflation starts to peter out, this number will stay flat. Things will collect and connect. But it also tells you as leaders, we didn't actually get the motor fuels index to inflation until here. Imagine that had been done in 2018. You would have immediately seen an increase in your value before you had collections. So it's just one of those things of, it's not always just about the motor fuels tax. It is general fund. Other states that permit it, sales tax. It's not permitted in Virginia. They don't allow sales tax to be used to fund transit. You can get it for education. Think it did it pass?
I think it did.
Well,
Yeah,
the
well,
question is the governor gonna?
Yeah, is
veto
he
it?
gonna, yeah.
So those are some of
Yeah,
the dilemmas.
House and the Senate.
But this is one of the issues, and as Jamie was talking, it was reminding me of when she brought up the slide about how much that 6% that leverages 94. When I went out to Boise, Idaho in 2007 as a general manager, this is my 4th transit system, Knoxville to Boise, to Columbia, South Carolina, to here. And each time I left and went somewhere else, it was a fiscal crisis. Our first fiscal crisis when I arrived in 2007 was because the population of the UZA had exceeded 200,000 people. When you cross the threshold of 200,000 people in your UZA, which I looked before the meeting, I think you're at 198 at the most recent census count. Maybe I could, no, not 198, hold on. 168, I think.
But 2 UZAs, which is problematic. You add them together, we reach it. Because they're split because of the gap in Stafford. We don't get to.
Sorry. Urbanized area. So what the government does is it carves out geographic zones, and basically, so Caroline County, not part of the UZA, it's part of the MPO, but the UZA is that core planning district, not the dense MPO. area. Yeah, so it's like a planning district concept. Once you cross 200,000 and your census data comes in, FTA will call you and say, hey, did you guys know you're not allowed to use your operating funds or your 5307 funds for operating anymore? You have a 5-year letdown. So what's going to happen is at your next census, 2 years after that, you're going to get a phone call from the Fed. So 8 years from now, they're going to say you can no longer use your federal money for operations. And based upon the data I've seen, you're going to cross it. I don't think there's any way you can avoid it.
Just to clarify, Caroline is not in there.
Correct. Caroline's not. It's going to be Fredericksburg, Stafford.
We're just around 160,000 in the Fredericksburg UZA. We've got to get over 200. So it would require the urbanized area to close the gap between North Stafford and South Stafford. In every census, we think we're going to get there, and then the Census Bureau changes the criteria, and then we don't get there.
Right,
so it all depends on what the criteria are next time.
Yeah, but that is one of those things that
if it happens,
if it happens, it will be something that will be a major fiscal impact. The good news, it's far enough away, but as you're thinking about your policy and you're making funding decisions, et cetera, having that in the long view of understanding what's coming will be to your advantage as policymakers, the decision. That legacy type decision you can make for transit that you may never see the benefit of as a policymaker, your region will see the benefit as someone who actually may one day use the service, like your mom. Our federal funding of the $520 million that comes into the DMV region under this federal allocation, WMATA gets 86% of it. MTA up in Maryland gets 4%, and then PRTC, it's 10%. Oh, we must be awash in cash because that's $52 million, right? Well, then this part goes over to VRE and the rest, 17% of that 10%, it's smaller and smaller, gets divided up between us, Fred, and the Vanpool program and the Vanpool Lions. And what ends up happening is that nets in around $5.4 million for us as an organization. Columbia, South Carolina, the system I left to come here receives more federal money than we do at Omni. It's just because WMATA, MTA, and VRE absorb such a disproportionate amount, it actually creates a burden on the localities that you would normally see. It's just one of those unique challenges. In terms of our services, Eastern service, Prince William County, Western service, split up between Prince William County, Manassas, and Manassas Farm. So if you do the math, that's Prince William, that's Prince William, it's 96% of our service. Sound very familiar in terms of who's actually providing the funding and the routes and the services. Key issues, inflation rates and labor is exceptionally difficult in our area. If you take Prince William County North, 75% of adults have a college degree. They're not wanting to drive buses and turn wrenches. It is a huge problem for us. We recruit out of the military, but we are competing directly against the schools. You mentioned the school board. They're offering signing bonuses. Drivers that work for us are like, well, I'll just go work for the schools for a while and come back. Will you give me a signing bonus? So people are job hopping and job shopping and rotating through to get cash bonuses. It's a challenge. We can't get technicians. We're going to the technical schools. We've reached out to Germanic. We're now reaching out to Laurel Ridge, formerly Lord Fairfax, to try to get technical workforce in. We're recruiting out of Orange. We're beginning to recruit out of West Virginia. So those are the kinds of we're recruiting along the I-81 corridor because that's where all that trucking is, all that cold storage, etc. Hey, tired of living away from your family? Would you actually like to sleep in your own bed for 5 nights in a row? One down. That's some of the things that we're trying to work through to get done. But here, the end of the motor fuels tax is revenue source. It's huge. The commuter patterns, we've talked about the increase in local congestion. These things are here for you. Reality is the growth of the EVs, but also if you just buy a car, if you bought a Toyota Camry 10 years ago and you buy one today, you're going to get gas less often. It's just how it is because our cars get better gas mileage. Don't we all want to pay less at the pump? Done. So it's just a natural automatic progression that is benefit, whether it's an environmental perspective or economic perspective or both. That's the way. The shifting travel patterns, we've talked about flexibility in commuter travel. We started our routes later. We come out of DC later at night. Why? Because now you might go in late for meetings and stay for a game. So those are some of the things we have to pay attention to. And also this shift in local service demands. It used to be 70% of Prince William County's residents left the county every day to go to work. Now down to 50. And it's not all telework. More and more jobs are in Prince William County. So it's a differing market. And then robust infrastructure opportunities. And we really are looking at some different things such as innovation technology and what can we start to do in terms of working with our chambers, working with the data centers. Are there things that we can actually be part of to grow the economy? So those are the highlights. Again, I didn't want to get granular on routes, but just give a big picture perspective on what's a little bit different from that commuter focus. We do have a lot of local route issues. A couple of big things. Some of you may be getting an email. We're going to check to find out. HB 285. HB 285 is about us making it easier to get bus shelters put in. It passed unanimously in the House and the Senate, but for whatever reason, some localities said, we don't like this, so they put in a sunset clause. Apparently, Governor Youngkin is interested in removing the sunset clause, but he wants to make sure we have local support. So we may be reaching out in the next day or two. All it does is make it easier to put shelters. It doesn't do any more money, a little more staff time, but you have to already conform to all the planning standards already. It just reduces the backlog that we have to wait for from the state, and it's less red tape. So that is one thing, maybe an email. Any questions?
Great presentation, Dr. Schneider.
A little disjointed just because I wanted to get us back out of here.
It's all good, all good.
Little stream of conscious.
I think this has been the first time I've heard this presentation in quite a while, quite a while.
I do want to offer, if anyone wants to come out, I know VRE offers tours, so do we. We will let you even drive the bus. Not out on the street. Yeah.
Not the rodeo.
But around the parking lot, we'll controlled environment, yes.
I'm in.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Correspondence, Ian.
Just one question, Chairperson. You'll remember my very first slide presentation tonight. You asked the question, do you want us to do more work on transit options or not? And we're not going to do work unless you want to work. So we need, if you don't want to talk about it tonight because it's late, that's fine. But we will not do more work if you don't ask us to do more work.
Monica? Yeah, can we
Yes,
defer that one,
we can.
please? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else on correspondence?
No, I don't believe so.
All right, the RTA meeting we have this coming Thursday.
Was there still a
Yeah,
need
there
to
was
change?
no, the school board meeting on our side got pushed to another date, so we're good.
So we're good for Thursday. You've already got the materials. right?
Correct, that's correct.
We did get an email that said it was canceled, like Monica and I got.
I got.
That was from,
I got it too, and then it,
That from-
yeah.
yeah, and then it,
Mine disappeared. It was in my.
That's how,
calendar,
I was telling
Yeah.
Monica, mine just
And I reset it. Yeah, it was weird. It disappeared.
What was that?
So it whatever that happened, didn't come from FAMPO staff. One of you must have pushed the wrong button on your.
It came,
It came from me because it was.
Yeah.
it Left my inbox.
Weird.
It left my calendar. And so I thought I was rejoining. So I sent it back. out.
yeah.
I don't know.
But
I'll happily send you a new
Said it was
calendar invite if
canceling
you
the
need
meeting,
one, but
and
it's
then
now on Thursday at 6 p.m. in this room.
yeah.
And you have all the materials.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
Or did you try
done.
to cancel our meeting?
Estimate for
Yeah.
I thought
a grant application timeline. Can you make that quick?
Sorry.
This is the survey. This is just the data that's coming in from the
Oh,
public.
right,
On the
right.
survey, it's 2 slides. There's 198 responses, Colleen.
And just some preliminary comments and the graph. But you will receive this when the action plan is complete.
So
Okay, awesome.
Responses
Thank
coming
you,
in.
Collie.
there's
Okay,
a
do we
FOIA
have-
application timeline is there also in your pack. Click on it quickly. Becky.
We have some corrections to the timeline. This was sent to you last Wednesday. We had an implementation grant workshop. The good news is when we sent this timeline to you, we thought we would have to have 2 separate grant applicants for the supplemental planning grant application, the implementation grant. That's not the case. So these can be combined. The thing we learned last week is that we thought that this deadline of April 17th would be an opportunity like Smart Scale, where you could submit your grant application and they'd tell you whether it was good or not. Indeed, that's not the case. April 17th is merely an opportunity for federal highways to look at your safety action plan to see whether it meets the self-certification requirements. So the big deadline of May 16th is where we will be working with localities to submit a joint application for supplemental planning grant applications and implementation grant applications. Right now, the localities are working with VDOT, who will be the contract deliverer of implementation grants. We also learned that the floor, the minimum we need to request, is $2.5 million of total grants. They're not going to take anything less than that. The other important fact we learned is that all of these projects, the award criteria is based on fatalities and serious injuries. So we're looking for, it's kind of a good news thing we found, Marcy, on, for example, Fredericksburg Turnpike. Since VDOT has installed the rumble strips to keep us all in the lane, fatalities have really dropped. Now, good bad news, in Spotsylvania County, the Andorra Old Plank intersection is the top most dangerous intersection in our high injury network. You all have a project to put a roundabout there. It's got a lot of fatalities and serious injuries. So your staff has recommended that to be. The other thing we learned is the projects we put in here can be multi-year. If they can be completed within a 5-year time frame from the grant application, and certainly the old Plank Andorra roundabout can do that. That's a nice, expensive one that puts us over that $2.5 million threshold. Got a lot of fatalities. So, we'll be working with localities, and we really feel, and also the resolutions of support for your 20% match. We need to look at the May 16th deadline to get that in hand. So a little breathing room from some of the deadlines on this timeline, and we're all working with the localities and our consultant, VHB, to put together what we think is going to be a successful grant application for you. That concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Becky. Becky's the engineer at FAMPO. She's done this. Thank you. She's done a very good job. This step is getting the federal money to go build this stuff. That's what this is.
Thank you, Becky. I understand you know the bad intersections in this whole region very, very well. So, any questions for Becky on her presentation? All right, great job. Thank you very much. Okay, any board member or chair comments? Any board member comments?
Dialing in remote with the subcommittee.
Read it again.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, I do not have any comments. Now we are gonna go into closed session.
Someone can
Oh,
read
yep.
the resolution.
Madam Chair, I move that FAMPO convene and close meeting pursuant to Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2-3711A1 for discussion and consideration of a personnel matter. So we need a second. Read this or?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Read the motion.
Get up. Okay, I move that FAMPO return to open meeting and certify by roll call vote that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters identified in the motion convening the closed meeting and lawfully exempted from FOIA's open meeting requirements were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting, and that this roll call vote will be recorded in the meeting minutes.
Okay, have a motion and a second.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Roll call vote.
Can you just call the name?
Yes, Meg Bucky,
Yes.
Lori Hayes,
Yes.
Jason Graham.
Yes.
Janet Holmes,
Yes.
Will McIntosh.
Yes.
Drew Mullins.
Yes.
Tom Henry.
Yes.
Marcy Perkins. Yes. Tom Snyder.
Yes.
Chris Benuch.
Yeah.
Emily Young. And Kathy Kelly. That concludes the roll call. Thank you.
You have a call.
Okay, so that passed unanimously. Thank you. And we have a motion coming in a closed session. Lori Hayes?
I hereby move that the policy committee instructs GWRC executive director to amend the annual remuneration of the FAMPO administrator to reflect an increase of 1.5% to his annual salary effective July 1, in addition to the budgeted 3.5% COLA and 40 hours of PTO.
Second.
Additional.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Everybody said aye. I said aye, and before, I just wanted to say, motion carries unanimously. I should have said this before, the evening is late. We appreciate you very much, as Lori and I communicated that the other day at Sammy T's. We enjoyed our lunch with you. We hope you had a wonderful birthday this past weekend. Anybody, board members, want to say anything?
PTO stands for paid time off.
Oh,
So you get extra.
An extra week vacation.
5 days, is it
that would be great.
extra 5 days of vacation
Okay.
to make up for what happened and.
Okay. Okay.
I would,
Yeah.
and I just want to say, as a professional, night and day organization, it's not just the members at this table, it's also you, and as someone who is in your shoes, I appreciate the work you do, I value, and you're an important part of the transportation economy in terms of the technical skills and people work together. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Really appreciate all the comments and the positive thoughts. Well, thank you very much. We'll go strength to strength, right?
Yes, we will. And with that, without further ado, we are adjourned, and now we're gonna sing happy birthday to you.
No.